Do I need an appraisal? That's a great question. So hey guys, I'm Brad with arborviewhomebuyers.com and georgiaprobateresource.com. We're a real estate solutions company here in Metro Atlanta. We buy houses all over the state of Georgia, and we specialize and we are experts in the world of probate and inheritance properties. So do I need an appraisal? Well, the answer to that is it depends. Sometimes a will may not say that you need to do an appraisal on some items. A lot of times, we've seen a lot of wills that actually say, basically the decedent will say, I won't require my heirs to appraise my goods, and they can basically sell it. I'm just paraphrasing this. They can sell it for whatever they want to sell it for, right? Because sometimes the will specifically say that, and that's going to complicate things. Another place where this situation might occur is that if you are doing an administration of the estate, which means there was no will that doesn't tell you what you need to do, or your will was not vague enough, and you have heirs who are, let's call it, fighting and can't come to an agreement, a lot of times what will happen, also, I left one thing out, if there are a lot of creditors involved and the estate has a lot of debt and owes a lot of money to creditors, there may be a requirement where you need to do an appraisal and appraise all of the assets of the estate to determine how much money goes to where. And what we found in a lot of those situations is that typically that's when you have like a court-appointed administrator where they are basically dictating everything. And honestly, that always makes things a lot more complicated than it needs to be, because an appraiser can say, hey, this item is worth X and you should sell it for X, but that doesn't mean that's what it's gonna sell for. Same with real estate and houses, right? Just because your house appraises for this price does not mean that's what your house is going to sell for. Your sale price and appraised price are two different things. Usually they're pretty close, right? Because an appraiser is taking into account recent sales and local sales, but that doesn't mean that that's what your house is going to sell for. Your house is going to sell for what someone is willing to pay you for it, right? There's going to be a buyer out there that's willing to pay for it. And especially in this downward trending market, that might not always be the same number, because an appraisal is based off of past sales, and typically in the last 6 months, and then we're in the current, in the current and then into the future. So the past doesn't always predict the future, but they usually is pretty close, right? So especially with a house, right? An appraiser might say your house is worth $300, and then maybe you list it on the market and it ultimately sells for $280,000. Well, what do you do in the situation of an estate where an appraisal comes in at 300 grand and all of the heirs think that there's 300 grand coming up that they're going to, let's say there's 3 heirs, right? And they're splitting it evenly. So your house sells for 300 grand and each heir gets 100 grand. Well, what happens if it appraises for 300 and then the house only sells, you only get an offer on the house for 280? Well, now what? Well, now the heirs have to agree to, okay, we're going to take 280 for the house, and their expectations, the price came in lower than their expectations. So that would be the case of something selling for less than appraisal, and that's why it creates complications, is something might not sell for what you think it's going to sell for, right? An appraisal is just an opinion, someone else's opinion of the value. That doesn't mean that's actually what it's worth. So do I need an appraisal? Like I said, a lot of times if there's a court-appointed administrator, if you guys as the heirs cannot come to an agreement as to how you're going to sell the assets, it may come down to that, where you're going to need an appraisal on all the assets and you're going to need to sell them. But what I'm here to give you is a little bit of a warning, is if you don't have to, please don't go that route, and you guys need to come to an agreement as to what you're going to sell these things for and be realistic about it. So many times estates can't be realistic about it, and they have unrealistic expectations, and all that does is create complications in the future when you go to sell those items and they don't sell for what you thought, and then now what do? And it holds up the sale, especially in the cases of real estate, where usually your first offer is your best offer, and you should take that offer. Now, there are some circumstances in a really, really hot market where maybe you should leave it on the market for a couple days and let a bunch of offers come in and you pick the best ones. But in a market like we're in right now, where since about July, August of 2022, as the market's sort of coming down a little bit, we're seeing about a 10% reduction in prices. If you get a solid offer in, you should take that offer. Don't be afraid to counter the offer a little bit, but if you get a solid offer in, take that offer. Don't be greedy. Don't wait around for a better offer. You need to take that offer and run with it, because you might not have another offer coming in after that. And guess what? 80% of something is better than 100% of nothing. Remember that saying. So if you say, you know what, we're not going to take that offer, and then you don't get any more offers, well, guess what? You just made zero, right? But you could have made 80% of what you thought it was, or 90% or 95%. So keep that in mind. And you might have to get appraisals on all of the other items of the estate, whether there's cars or there's, jewelry or all these other items. You may have to do that, but it's not always required in every single estate. So make sure that if there is a will, you read the will, because sometimes it'll tell you whether you need to or you don't need to. And most of all, I highly encourage you to consult with a probate attorney if at all possible. You don't have to hire a probate attorney, but it's highly, highly recommended. I can't tell you how, especially if there are multiple heirs involved. If it's just one heir involved and it's just you or your brother and your sister and you guys get along pretty well, and you're not greedy people, and you're not going to, be unpredictable from an emotional perspective. Because once money gets involved, people change. Trust me, we see it all the time. We've done a lot of these deals, and we see it all the time. So if you know that your sister or whoever the other heir is not going to be, you guys are pretty much going to come to an agreement on things, then you may not need an appraisal, and just sell it for what you need to sell it for. But again, also if there's creditors, they might require you to do that if there's a lot of debt involved, because they need to understand whether the assets can sufficiently cover the debt. So, but for example, if let's say you have a house that's worth $500,000 and there's $300,000 worth of debts owed, well, you're probably going to sell the house and have a little bit left over for the heirs. So just keep that in mind too. So do you need an appraisal? Well, the answer is it depends. And you should really consult a real estate attorney about that, because that's more of a legal question and it's unique. Each person's situation is unique. So I hope that helps. Again, I'm Brad with GeorgiaProbateResource.com and ArborViewHomebuyers.com. I really appreciate you checking out this video. If you have a house that you need to sell, we'd love to buy it. We can make you a quick, fast, easy cash offer, or we can help you list it the traditional way. I am a licensed real estate agent in Georgia with One Source Realty. So thanks again. I appreciate it. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.